Hello, it is the 23rd of August 2020 and Stash Stash finished yesterday, so as promised I am checking back in to see how I got on, and I'm very happy to say that I met my target, which was 7,000 metres knit and crocheted. So I have 2 finished objects today, and I also brought, as you can see here, all of the finished items that I have still with me. I thought I'd do a quick run through of them. As seems to be the way with me, I'm not feeling very well this weekend, so I'm not going to talk about them in masses of detail, but just a quick look at them all. So first of all, this finished object is something you've not seen before, because I cast it on about Tuesday or Wednesday this week and finished it yesterday. So it is the Scrappy Smile, no, Smiled Scrappy? Scrappy Smiled, I can't remember which way around. I will put the details above. Hat by Tiff Nealon, and I have knit it with 1 strand double knit, 1 strand sport weight and 1 strand of fingering weight. So the sport weight is the red that's throughout, and that is Dandelion Yarns Rosy Sport. I'm not sure the colourway name. That's leftovers from a cowl I knit last year. And then the purple that goes all the way through is the DK, and that is Old Maiden Aunt Superwash BFL DK in last night's red dress. That's left over from my Doge's Palace cowl, which I knit quite a few years ago now. And for the fingering weight, I used 4 random scraps. There's a sort of reddy orange one from the crown to round about here, and then a paler pink one that is most of the hat. In the brim there's a bright pink one, and at the very edge of the brim there's a sort of variegated reddish purple one. They've all been scraps, I think, that were given to me. In fact, the pinkish one through here is from Yarn Pony, Mika, and it was just a little amount. She was doing a bit of a de-stash a couple of years ago, and it was just a small amount of this kind of pinky purpley kind of grape colour, but the rest were minis I got in my Advent mini swap, I think. So yeah, good way of making up my last bit of meterage, because basically I realised in the start of the week that there was no way I was going to finish both my shawls, but I think I mentioned last video that in order to meet my target I was going to have to finish more than just one of my shawls. So I thought, what can I do to make up the last 200 or 300 metres, and decided that a marled hat would be a good plan, because obviously I get the yardage or the meterage for all 3 strands, but because they're held together it was really quick to knit up. So happy with that. You know, obviously not something that I was planning to knit for myself, so it will probably go to charity, but yeah, happy with that as a target stash buster project. The other thing I finished this week was a much bigger yardage or meterage, and it is my Islington shawl. Now this shawl is ginormous. I'm amazed at how big this is. Now I didn't even stretch this out when I blocked it. I laid it flat. It took all 4 of my blocking mats, and I let it do its thing. I mean, the lace, it might have benefited from a little bit of a stretch. Yesterday I was not in the mood for sitting on the floor and trying to add in flexible blocking wires or yarn through the edge or whatever. It was going to take me forever to do whatever I did with it, and I've had a strange leg issue that is resulting in some nerve pain in my big toe when I stretch my leg, and that was really being exacerbated by being down on the floor. So I just let it do its thing. I don't know whether you'll be able to see, but the lace has, I mean, the lace, to be honest, wasn't ever too squidged up to begin with, but it has, you know, opened out quite nicely anyway, just through a good soak and laying flat. So yeah, this was a good, I think it was about 750 metres. The yarn, as I've mentioned before, is Earth Yarns. It's the Harvest Fingering in the colourway Fig, and I bought it from Tribe Yarns. And I'm very pleased with it. I haven't actually tried it on. I'm not going to because I have my microphone attached and that will be annoying for you. But yep, very happy with that. It's a lovely goldy kind of colour. And the design is by Cowl. So those are my two finished objects you haven't seen before. And you might remember that I started, my first cast off of Stash Dash was another green shawl, a slightly different shade, but this was in Yarn Pony yarns from the same D-stash that Mika did, and it is Gudrun Johnson's Ace Light shawl, which I've worn quite a bit. I made the smaller size just because I wasn't convinced that I was going to have enough yarn to make the larger size, and Mika doesn't dye yarn anymore, so it's quite dainty, but I do enjoy wearing it, and it's really nice. I made 3 other hats. You'll remember the giant Trondra, yes, by Emily Williams, or Flutter by Knits, and this was in Jameson & Smith, and the grey yarn was left over from my Wintersol. Lamel garn from Rauma, and I would be lying if I could remember what the lining was, but you can check back on my videos if you particularly care to know. A fairly recent finished object, which was my Purslow by Carrie Westerman, and knit out of Garter Stitch Yarns Country Mile DK. And this hat, which giant hats was the theme this year, this Stash Dash. This was the Rooibos by Claire Devine and knit out of New Lanark yarns, which I finished quite early on in Stash Dash. That had been started before Stash Dash got underway, as had the green shawl. And one other project that had been started before Stash Dash was that's upside down. I was going to call this the Choose Colour Cowl, but that's not what this was. Same designer, Maddie Harvey. I'm going to have to look that up. Give me 2 seconds. It's the Soft Hearted Cowl by Maddie Harvey, and the yarn is from La Bien Aimée, a tough sock duo that I got at EYF a few years ago. Then we have a few homeware type things. So we've got my Woolly Originals iPad mini cover in the Scottish Wildflowers colourway design, and this was knit out of Jameson & Smith, and the cream is the Lamel garn again from Rauma. And we have the Rockweed cushion cover by Kate Bostwick, aka Cowtown Knits, and this was knit out of some Erica Knight maxi wool with buttons from Textile Garden. And of course my Crochet Blanket granny square, solid granny square design from Attic 24, but made a bit bigger, each of the squares, all out of Jameson & Smith yarn in lots and lots of different colours. That's my one crochet project from Stash Dash this year, and I am only a little bit further forward on figuring out how I'm going to raffle that off, but I will put notes in the description box for this video when I do get that organised. I will give some warning before the day that it's actually available, as I think it will just be a one-day thing. But hopefully I'll have that organised in September sometime. I've had back and forth with the council, they're not entirely sure about the situation as to whether I need a license or not, and have sent me back to the Gambling Commission, so I'm trying to get in touch with them. I like to do things by the book, but this was taking things further than I thought it was going to need. Then I have one pair of little booties, and you might recall that I made a second pair of booties in blue colours, and those were sent off to my friend who had a baby in July, I think, along with the little baby cardigan that was finished just before then. And then of course we had 30 squares in total added to my Cozy Memories blanket. I had initially planned to try and knit one a day in Stash Dash, which would have been 93, so that obviously didn't happen, but never mind, it's brought the blanket along a good bit to where it was before. And not part of Stash Dash, but I did at the start show you a cross stitch that I was working on. Can't remember if I showed you the cross stitch I finished. So we had the Ross Family Crest cross stitch, which I was working on as part of the 100 Days Project Scotland, which finishes today. It's coincidental that the timings were very close, so this is day 100. And then I picked up this cross stitch and put in quite a lot of work on it. So I think, yes, I did this entire square with the cat, this window, I think all of the curtain and leaves in this square, did this bird, and a few other sort of, there's some shading on the edges of the windows. And I've also just recently done this section of this cat here, and all I've got left to do is the rest of the cat here, and then a reasonable amount of backstitch, not a massive amount, but there is a fair bit. It'll probably take me a month or so to do, I would have thought, but otherwise this is very close to being finished, which is a really nice outcome of lockdown. I started this cross stitch in 2003, so it's taken me a long time, but most of the work has been done this year, I think, or a good proportion of it. So yeah, that is the end of all my Stash Dash and 100 Days project work, and it's obviously been a very crafty time. My clear shawl, in case you're wondering, it hasn't moved on, I think, at all since the last time I filmed, when I realised that I was not going to be able to finish both it and the Islington shawl in the time, so I thought I'd just focus on Islington. I have cast on a pair of red socks as well, and today I'm planning on casting on another shawl, but yeah, it's been good. I don't think I'll film again for a while, but you never know. Maybe I'll do a little monthly or quarterly catch up on what I've been making. Other plans for the kind of coming few months include some baby knits. I have a new step niece or nephew on the way, and I'll also be trying to knit some socks for a homeless collection, and maybe some socks for friends too. I've got some really nice yarns that I got in Operation Social Justice that are going to be perfect for socks, so there might be some more socks on the go in the future. More squares on my Cozy Memories blanket. I've been thinking about whether I want to push on with that so that I can finish that in Stash Dash next year, if they run Stash Dash again. But I also have a crocheted blanket that's all hexagons, which might be the thing that I work on and try to get finished in the next Stash Dash, if that happens. So we shall see. I've also got plans for a couple of jumpers. So many things I want to knit and crochet. We'll see how that goes. Anyway, I'm going to round up here. Thanks for watching, and have a very crafty rest of August. Bye!